Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. You just joined SheCanCode's live webinar called Recruiter Secrets Every Tech Job Seeker Should Know. I'm your host today, Kaylee Batesman, the Content Director at SheCanCode. And for those tuning in who aren't familiar with us, SheCanCode is a collaborative community working together to tackle the tech gender gap. You can join our community to find a supportive network of like-minded ladies, new job opportunities and guidance to help you to excel in your tech career. Now, before I introduce our speakers, please note that we have a live Q&A session running today. So please submit your questions throughout and we will try and get to them at the end. So let's kick off with my wonderful guests for today. I have Amita Patel, sourcing specialist, talent attraction and engagement at Google Deepmind, and Cat Mawdsley, head of Pathfinders Academy, powered by Morson Group. Hello, ladies. Welcome to the panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Kaylee. Thanks for having us.
We're going to kick off with a bit of context about both of you, if that is okay, just to give a bit of an overview of your background to set the scene for our audience today. Amita, shall we start with you?
Yeah, hi everyone. As Kaylee mentioned, I'm Amita. I guess I'm probably like most recruiters in some sense in that I sort of kind of fell into the industry post-graduation. I initially started my career recruiting for quant hedge funds, trading firms, investment banks, really focusing on the engineering side of things. I then spent a little bit of time in an insurance company, again focusing on recruitment, and then I moved to Google Deepmind about 3 years ago. I've had a few different roles there, so mostly on the engineering and machine learning side of things. And now I work on sourcing, so focusing on talent attraction and engagement. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. So hopefully I'll be able to share some insightful information with you all.
Incredible. Thank you. And you're joining us from beautiful New Orleans today. So thank you for joining us. Kat, yourself.
Yeah, so obviously, as mentioned, I'm the head of Pathfinders Academy over at Morson Group. So my background is predominantly L&D. So I've done 9 years in apprenticeships, 5.5 years in tech apprenticeships. Just coming out of COVID, I worked on some digital skills gap projects and actually looked at the digital skills gap and was thinking there's more that could be done. I was meeting a lot of career changers, career transitioners, and looking at really their transferable or adaptable skills and what they actually can represent within tech. So I actually left the training industry in its not necessarily in its entirety, but back in March I found myself a role at Morson, and I head up the Pathfinders Academy, which is all about championing those career changers and career transitioners. You know, working with clients, very much client-led, and working with clients to reverse engineer roles, looking at their teams and how they can actually develop their teams and build their own talent pipelines. And that's where we are today.
Brilliant. When we spoke previously, I love the fact that you said that you focus on career transitioners. So many of our community are made up of career transitioners and people that have fallen into tech or are going into tech later in life. So I know our community are going to find this really useful today. We're going to kick off with a conversation. This was one of our most popular webinars earlier in the year, as you ladies know. So we're running it again because everybody just wanted to know those secrets that when recruiters look at a CV, what is it that they're thinking? What makes them want to be in an application? What makes them want to keep an application? So we're going to kick off with what are some common mistakes you see in tech resumes and how can candidates avoid them? Amita, should we kick off with you?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. I think one of the most common things that we tend to see is we like to call it like a black hole of experience, where somebody's just listed, you know, endless duties of their role, but they haven't actually expanded or kind of quantified what they've done or what they've achieved. So really, as a recruiter, if you're kind of reading that, it's hard to kind of paint a picture of what they've done or what their experience actually is. So instead of just kind of stating what you've done, if you can use data or statistics to kind of paint that picture, that really helps. An example would be, you know, if you put, I wrote some code, you know, that we don't really know what that means or what that actually translates to. But if you said something like, I developed a machine learning model that increased conversion by 25%, you know, we have a better idea of actually what you've done, and we can kind of get a better sense of whether that's, you know, relatable to what we're looking for. And at the end of the day, you want to really shout about your achievement. So if you can write that in a concise way, I think that's really important.
Black hole of experience. I love that. I've never heard that before. And you are right. If somebody just says I can code, what does that mean? And what did they work on? Yeah. Cat, yourself, is that something you've heard of before? A black hole?
Yeah. So not necessarily the black hole, but I think what Amita was saying was, you know, giving those examples and actually backing up your statement. You know, what you need to be doing with your resume is kind of really looking at it from the perspective of a recruiter or a hiring manager. I mean, Amita, how many CVs do you get for one job role?
I mean, it can be thousands, honestly. Really, you know, we're seeing so many.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, like when you put a resume in, you've got to understand that scan read, that initial read, is about 6 to 10 seconds. That's all you've got. And if that person can't find what they're looking for on that scan read, they won't read any further. They'll just turn over because they've got so many CVs and candidates to get through and to screen. I think the other thing as well that's really important is to think about your layout. And even seniors do this, because obviously within Morson Group, you know, we work on deployment contracts, MSPs, and permanent roles within tech as well. And even the recruiters within the teams will say, you know, they can't even get the right information in there, like, you know, put your name in there, your contact details. Like if you're successful with your CV and you get invited for an interview, how's somebody going to get in touch with you? And, you know, if you're going to put there's one thing that I do say to, and this is more on the junior market as well, professional summary versus a personal statement. Really think about what that means to you. And if you've got very limited experience in tech, but you want to get into the tech market, look at how you bring your transferable skills across into that CV via the employment history, but give an overview, a synopsis of what you bring to the table, so that recruiter can actually say, oh, you've done this. And the same with a professional summary. If you can provide that synopsis, and then they can find that more expanded detail, like Amita was saying, in that employment history, that's matching it up. And you've just got to look at it through a slightly different lens, guys. I think that's one of the things that I'd give you as a takeaway.
Yeah, I love the fact when you said about scanning, I mean, you're probably just scanning for keywords, aren't you? I mean, Amita, if you receive thousands of applications per job, you're probably just scanning for those keywords, and that's it. And then that's how you at least work out who's going to get a screening call.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what Kat said as well, the formatting plays a really big part. Good CVs that we see tend to highlight or bold or colour the statistics part or the data, the kind of key bits of information. So that's really helpful as recruiters when you're looking as well. I think another thing to note as well is a lot of companies, I mean, Google Deepmind, we don't, but I know a lot of companies do use like AI software to scan CVs and kind of reduce the number of them. So the formatting can kind of throw that off as well. So making sure that you don't have, you know, tons of graphics or images and stuff like that is really important for not getting kind of bypassed in those systems.
Absolutely. And if you actually submit, and that's a really good point, if you submit your CV to a recruitment agency, don't put any graphics in there or symbols, because they hate them. Because what they then have to do is then they obviously reformat your CV specifically for that client and that client that they're working with. And it's an absolute bugbear. The other thing as well, and Amita, that's a really good point, they do use AI. Think about your keywords and what you want to get across, because that AI will also scan on those keywords. And if those keywords aren't in there that are relatable to that job application, you're just going to get overlooked again.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said about graphics as well, because how creative should you get? I mean, you want to stand out, but obviously you just said as well that the formatting issues. So I suppose there's a balance, isn't there? Not showing too much personality, but trying to get it across in your summary.
Yeah, I would recommend that you don't pop a picture in there. That's back in the 90s. We're not
I was going to say very 1990s. Yeah.
If they want, if they want to know what you look like, they will go and profile view you on LinkedIn potentially. But obviously that's, we're looking for people that are not going to be recruiting by a bias or anything like that. But the most important thing I can say is think about how it reads. If it reads well to you, it will read well to a recruiter. If it's not formatted, like I did key 4 sections, and those key 4 sections were like what you want at the very top. So your details, where you come from, where you're based, your contact details, your professional summary versus your personal statement. You could pop in there your strengths. That's always really good as just a very quick synopsis. You think you're a good problem solver. Why? And then obviously then going into your employment history, because that is generally how I see recruiters would read. So concentrate more on the format and the information in there rather than making it look pretty, so to speak.
I think it depends as well, because it depends on the role that you're applying for as well. If it's something like a UX UI designer where they are looking for that creativity, you probably have a little bit more license to be a bit more creative. But if it's like your standard software engineer or something like that, you just want to think about what you're applying for and then kind of tailor it that way, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I wanted to ask you about, obviously, technical skills, they vary from role to role. And like you said, you're going to tailor your application depending on which role you're applying for. But if technical skills vary from role to role, are there any soft skills or qualities that set successful tech candidates apart from others?
Yeah, definitely. So Digital Skills Gap report reported back in September. It was reported that tech employees are still looking for those 5 key soft skill areas. So that was around adaptability, communication, problem solving, teamwork. And I always forget the 5th one. I talk about them all the time and I have to refer to them. But obviously I can drop to you, for the audience, the link to the report, because it's actually a really interesting read. And I think it's relevant. So if you think about when you get a role in tech, for instance, you potentially work collaboratively. So if you can't work with a team, then how's that gonna how is that even going to come to fruition? Also, you will be needing to communicate. So when we talk about communication, think about stakeholders. So how do you communicate with internal stakeholders, and how do you communicate with external stakeholders? It could be that you're working on a project for a client and you need to feed back to that client the outcome or the findings. But as well, you need to go back to internal teams. It could be your team, or it could be that you have to communicate that information to another team that's going to take on another element of that project. So it's really thinking about, what have you done previously that backs those 5 key soft skills up? And this isn't just from an entry level market. This is across the whole of the levels, the different levels of job roles. Tech employees are still reporting that they've got a lack of that within their own internal teams. So think about how that comes through as well when you actually apply for a job role.
And examples as well, because Amita, you echoed that at the start, not just saying those 5 things, saying, oh, I'm a good communicator. Well, that's great, but you haven't really proven that. How did you communicate with your team? Was it, even if it's, something negative, perhaps, something went wrong, and this is how you overcome a challenge. But just, put in the words, I'm a good communicator, don't really pick you apart from everybody else, do they?
No,
Definitely agree.
And I think sorry, go on, Amita.
Go on, Kat.
Sorry, I just remember the final one is team leading, so management.
Yeah.
And that's not about I managed a team of 5 people. That's actually think about, how did you inspire? How did you become a leader? So how inspiring your team did you get to that end goal, or did you achieve that delivery for that product or that delivery for that client? So you're absolutely right. Don't just put the words in there, because again, you'll get overlooked.
Amita, do you just overlook words like that? You think, yeah, everybody thinks they're a great communicator, right?
Yeah, when you're seeing so many a day, and like people have just you've got to be able to distinguish between who's actually expanding on what they've done or just kind of listing the words. And I think as well, I definitely agree with what Kat said already, but in tech especially, I think having that skill of being able to communicate really technical pieces of information to a non-technical audience in a way that's can be easily understood is really important. And when you're working on these big projects, it's not just the engineers and the technical people that are working on it. It is your program managers, your product managers, your business analysts. So you really do need to be able to work with them. And I think, in interview processes, we have interviews dedicated just to the soft skills and how you collaborate, how you work as a team. So that they are, equally as important as the technical skills. It shouldn't be overlooked, or you think, I'm a really strong coder, I don't need to kind of work on the soft skills. I think they're equally as important.
Yeah, I'm a great coder, but I'm great with sitting on my own all day and not communicating with anybody. That doesn't really seem a very strong application. What about cover letters? Kat, you mentioned that including things like pictures and things, that's very 1990s. Is a cover letter out of date? Are we still doing that? What should we do it, and what should it highlight?
This brought about, it always brings about kind of different angles and different perspectives when this is asked. For me, a cover letter is just a polite way of saying, I've applied for this role, please see attached CV, look forward to hearing from you. Because actually, your detail of you should be in your CV. Your cover letter is just that polite kind of introduction to yourself. The other thing that really I've heard as well is that you go onto a website and they'll ask you to put your application in. So you go through 15 steps on a website and put your application in, and then they'll ask you for a cover letter and a CV. Like, why? Because I've just literally taken all of my content from my CV and answered all of these questions in the application process. Why do I then need to do a cover letter and a CV? For me, that's my personal opinion on it. Is if you are requested, or you feel like, if it's a cold CV, for instance, then yes, I would say a cover letter. If you wanted to put your CV into a company, even if you know that they don't have any job roles at that moment in time, then obviously expand on that in the cover letter. If it's just literally you're sending your CV via email, then do you put a separate cover letter in, or actually is your cover letter your email and you're just giving yourself that? And you're being polite. I wouldn't say expand on anything within your cover letter, because that should be found in your CV. Because actually, our recruiters will say that they won't even look at the cover letter. They'll just turn it over and look straight at the CV, because that's what they're going for.
Yes, I agree. Sometimes it is just a repeat of everything. And you do think sometimes you get to the end, you think, why are you asking me for even more information? What else can I say? Or I regret what I just said and everything else, because now you want me to put it in my cover letter. And Amita, yourself, do you just disregard cover letters, or do you actually take the time to read them?
I've actually got a bit of a different opinion on this. And I will say, I don't think there is like a hard and fast rule with cover letters. I think even some of my colleagues, we've got like different opinions on this. Again, I think it depends on the company, the kind of size of the company. I know a lot of kind of smaller startups just want the CV, they just want the kind of information quick and fast. But I do think there is some value in a cover letter. I think it is an opportunity. Obviously, you still want it to be concise and short, but I think you can use it as an opportunity to expand a little bit further. If it's like a real niche role that you're going for, and you've got a particular skill set that really matches the role, you can kind of delve into that one project that you worked on in a little bit more detail. Again, it's a balance though. You're not writing it like an essay, and you're not repeating what you've got in your CV. It's really about looking at the CV and the cover letter as one kind of package, and thinking about what you can write in the cover letter to help you stand out. But again, I think that there isn't like a hard and fast rule, and I think you need to be confident to like make that judgment on, am I writing it for the sake of it, or is there actual kind of useful information in there that is going to make a difference to the recruiter?
Yes, definitely. And going back to what Kat said, whether or not it is you're going in cold, there isn't a job available, and you just want to say, hey, I'd love to work at this company. Is there anything available? That, kind of makes more sense. But like you said, Kat, you said sometimes you say all of that in an email, and it's quite unusual to attach the cover letter as well.
Yeah, and I think Amita's right. I think that's a really good perspective of it. If it's a niche area, then yes, expand and utilize it. But like Amita said, it's going to be a difference of opinion, and that will be a difference of opinion between hiring managers, recruiters that are internal talent team recruiters versus external recruiters. Just make sure it's valuable and it's worth you actually putting it in, I think, is one of the key things.
I agree. Kat, we see a lot of people that are maybe, in a different area, industry role, but wanting to transition into a role. And we see them kind of, expand on their transferable skills and stuff in a cover letter. What's your opinion? Do you think it should be in the CV, or do you think the cover letter is a good place to kind of back that up a little bit?
So I see a lot of CVs coming through from people that are trying to get into the market, those career changes. I did do a CV workshop last week as well for a group of bootcamp graduates, basically, that are just trying to get into the junior developer market. It's really, really key. Your transferable skills are what kind of get you in or don't. Your transferable skills are the kind of the hand up out of the CV that goes, hey, yay, I know I'm a junior and I've not got experience in tech, but look at this. I've done these jobs before. I've been a team leader. I've worked in a customer service role. All of that lot. But again, like you were saying, and I think it's a really good perspective on it, is if you feel that your CV is lacking, so for instance, you go for, you've done a full stack development course and you're actually going for a front end developer, then obviously your CV needs to reflect more along the front end. And then actually, do you elaborate on that in your cover letter? So they'll see that you've done learning and development in a full stack bootcamp, for instance. But then can you use that cover letter to expand why you prefer front end, for instance? So you're backing that up, because I think the challenge is making sure that you kind of write your CV third person, and people always struggle with that. And then you write your CV third person. You don't want to put 3 pages in of a CV because that's literally going to get lost. You want everything to be concise and put synopsis on there, and you really thought about your format, but you really want to work for this employer and you really love the sound of this job. So actually, do you elaborate a bit more within a cover letter? Potentially. So you've probably made me start thinking about that as well, Amita.
Kat's going to be bringing cover letters back by next week. A lot of our community, they ask about technical interviews and what to expect. So what type of technical interviews can candidates expect in the tech industry? Amita, is this something that you can help with?
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot of options out there, and each company will have their own kind of process that they use. So the first one is the kind of coding interviews with an interviewer. So this is what we use at Google Deepmind, and I think it's quite a popular format. So it's run on a coding platform, so things like HackerRank, CoderPad, LeetCode, and you'll be on a call with an interviewer at the same time. So you both have access to this coding platform, and then you're on the call with an interviewer as well. And essentially, it's like the interviewer will show you a coding question, and you will code up your solution live. I think there's pros and cons. So in that scenario, the interviewer is able to kind of give you some hints and prompts live. They can kind of guide you a little bit. They're not just looking at like the end code solution. They're actually looking at your approach, your thought process. Have you got the kind of theoretical knowledge? And they can kind of make a well-rounded decision on your performance. So I'm a pretty big fan of that one. It can be a little bit daunting for interviewers, but I think for candidates, sorry, but I think if if candidates are aware of what to expect, and usually the recruiter will kind of give them that context in the initial interview, it can help them to prepare, and you can practice on things like HackerRank and CoderPad as well, like in your own time. Another format is the coding interview, but without the interviewer. So it's more of like an online test, automated online test. Usually there's like a right or wrong answer. So the candidate will do the test. It will then get sent through to the interviewer, who will review the scores. And usually you get like a mark out of 20 or something, and there'll be like a pass mark. So it's more kind of cut and dry there. There's not really room for any discussion or conversation. So I think personally that's a little bit tough. You also don't usually get a lot of feedback as well, so it can be a little bit frustrating for candidates. You've put a lot of time into that, you've done the test, and then you just get an auto reject, and you don't really know what went wrong, how bad you did or how good you did. So that's quite stressful. Another one is a kind of portfolio discussion. So you see that a lot in UX, UI, design, web development type of roles. This is where you would kind of create your portfolio. You'd choose your best 5 projects. You'd include links to those projects on GitHub or something like that. You'd probably send that through to the interviewer ahead of time, and then maybe have like a follow-up call with an interviewer where you'll kind of dig into the project a little bit more, and see, have a discussion about it, really, any challenges you faced. Again, I think having like a touch point with the interviewer where you can actually have a chat about it really helps to kind of convey your skills and experience. I feel like I've been talking for ages, but there's so many.
They're all useful, because our community always ask for specifics, what actually happens. And with the first instance, you said at least there are some things that you can practice on, and that some expect that you won't get any feedback, and don't be offended by that. And these are things that people ask us all the time. I mean, Kat, do you hear these sorts of things as well? People are really nervous about technical interviews and what happens when you get in them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think from from my perspective, from the junior market perspective, when I talk to juniors and I say, you've got to go into that interview, don't be a robot. Because also, when we were talking about put your mind into the recruiter, put your mind into the interviewer. It could be 4 o'clock on a Monday and they've been interviewing since 9 o'clock. They've exhausted themselves because they've had to give information and take information. They're carrying out that interview. So when you go into that interview, don't be a robot. Be curious, be engaging, don't be false, don't sit there and think that, don't come up with things that you don't know anything about, because that's the worst thing to do. And talking about kind of like the technical interview stuff, I was speaking to a client about 18 months ago, and they actually give them like a problem solving to work through. And actually, they said the people that they took, kind of like the majority of the people that they took through were the people that got it wrong. And I was like, that's interesting. And he went, yeah. And we took them through because at the side of the problem solving, they'd actually wrote those steps. And so that they could see their logical approach to it. And they were kind of trying to work it out and how they would get to that end goal and how they would get there. And they didn't even quite manage to get to the end goal, or they actually answered it wrong and went right instead of left, for instance. But they took them on because they said we could see their methodical approach and how they were going to tackle that problem solving within the job role. And one thing that is a bone of contention, and a couple of months ago I announced this in an event, but I said, and don't be scared to ask for your interview questions before you go into the interview. And everybody went, you can't do that. And I was like, hold on a minute, you can, and it's not advantageous. So a lot of people think that it's unfair, and it's actually not. So if one person asks for those, have we got any technical questions, for instance, or have you got some set questions that you're asking in the interview? And to Amita's point as well, ask what that interview process is going to look like. What is that detail? What is involved? What can you go away and practice and concentrate on? But with regards to the interview question, it actually promotes fairness across the board. And it also promotes for the employer innovation. And this is the reason for it. Not everybody will answer those questions in exactly the same way. So you'll get different perspectives and different angles coming into it. You'll also, as an employer, work out those that have really put their mind into these questions and those that are just going to wing it when they go in. I'm sorry to say, but it does happen. So really, really think about that in terms of if there are technical interview questions or just standard set interview questions, ask for them, because there's nothing wrong with asking for them. And actually, probably what you may do is you may be the only one that's asked, and then the employer has to send it to everybody anyway.
Actually, that's a good tactic, yeah, just to ask. I think a lot of people don't think of that, or they don't think that they are allowed to ask them up front. When you're going through CVs, are there some indicators that a candidate aligns well with your company's values and culture? Is there anything you see, anything they're not for us, or you see things you think, yep, that keyword definitely aligns with us as a company with good values and good culture?
I have an answer to this. I do not like culture fit recruitment, talent acquisition. Because actually, from my background, I champion inclusivity. Mm-hmm. So when you are adopting what I call open to inclusion, you're not looking for that culture fit. You're looking for what is the added bonus to you if this person comes to your team. What do they bring to the team? And I'm going to flip that around. So as a candidate, when you are, I always advise, and with regards to junior level, go away and look at the five companies in your area that you would love to work for and find out why. And then go to your local networking events and you will meet the people that are there. Talk to them, because there is nothing better than a person that already works at that company, one, to help you network into the company, but two, to also give you the reality of working for that company. We can all sit as as employers and put our mission and values on our website, but if we don't live and breathe those mission and values and they're not shown to the outside world, nobody knows. So from the talent perspective and those that are applying, go and do your research, because then you will find out if actually, I will flip it around, do those missions and those values suit what you're looking for? Because if they do, then obviously that helps you with regards to your CV, that helps you with your engagement in your interview questions, because you can ask questions around it further. So I flip it on its head, really, rather than trying to take a CV and fit it into that mission, culture and value. But that's just me.
I mean, that's great advice to go and meet some people as well, because you are right. Sometimes when you do your research online, you'll only perhaps find bad reviews about a company. I mean, people tend to, if they leave and they feel quite negative, that's when they're going to put a review. Or, nobody really leaves and says, I had a wonderful time at this company. But if you go and speak to somebody at a networking event and they give their honest opinion and they don't even know that you're looking to apply, and you just throw that question, like, what was the culture like at your company? And they give you some, an honest answer about what it is like, then that is far more valuable. I agree, Kat, in just thinking whether or not you want to apply in the first place, rather than them trying to shoehorn you into something.
Yeah.
Amita, what about yourself?
Yeah, I really agree with what Kat said. So firstly, I think you can't assess a candidate's fit, but I don't like the word fit anyway, but you can't assess a candidate's suitability for alignment with the mission or culture from a CV. So when we are looking at CVs, from my experience anyway, I'm just looking at their technical skills and whether they've got the technical experience for the role. So I think I like to call it culture add. That's what you assess when you actually get on a call and speak to the candidate. And I'm the same as Kat. I don't like to pigeonhole people or recruit more people like exactly the same as what we've already got. We are looking for that like diverse perspective and different thoughts of opinion. And the world is so diverse, like your company should be like reflective of that market as well. And really championing those kind of diverse thoughts is really key. So I think as long as like the technical skills are there, then the culture adds, that can be anything. There's not like a one size fits all. And again, meeting people, I think that's a really, really good point. Networking, connecting, LinkedIn, really, really good ways to kind of connect and kind of meet people.
Yeah, I think we all agree on not having that fit, as you called it. There is something controversial that I wanted to talk about, which is negotiating job offers. What advice do you have for candidates when it comes to negotiating a job offer, especially in the tech sector? Do you have any advice for this? It's a hard conversation sometimes.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first on this one. I think it's a really good question, and I'll be super honest and say that, you know, when I'm giving offers and I'm dealing with the negotiations, on average, male candidates will negotiate a lot more than women or non-binary people. And it's really it is hard. It's hard because then you're looking at the compensation packages, and because they're more confident and willing to ask for that, they're ending up with a bigger package. So I think it's really important to do your research. So look at the company on Glassdoor, look at the kind of there's loads of salary comparison websites, look at the location, the role, and really paint the picture of what you want, and how you're kind of basing yourself, so you know what your strategy is going to be when you reach that stage. I think as well, in the tech industry, offers are very complex, so they usually have 3-4 components. So really understanding how that works, the vesting schedule, the stock, the bonus, whether there's any movement on that, and if you're not understanding it and you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask questions. Really, the recruiter is there to make sure you've got all the information that you need. Sometimes negotiations take weeks, and that's fine. Just don't be afraid to ask questions, I think. And as well, really lean on your recruiter. I try and create a really open space with all my candidates and say, ultimately I am on your side. I want you to get the best possible offer. If they've got competing offers, competing comp packages, companies they're talking to, if you're as open with me with that information, I've got more kind of power when I go to my compensation team to push for more. So don't try and use your recruiter as a kind of team player to help you. And then finally, which might be a bit controversial, know when to walk. So really know your worth. And if you are going around in circles and you do really feel like, you're being undervalued, don't be afraid to walk. There's so many opportunities out there, and you shouldn't just take what you're given because you think, oh my God, I really want to work for this company. So yeah, just know your worth and know when to walk, I think is key as well.
Yes, I agree. I can see Cat nodding away when you said know when to walk.
Definitely. And I don't negotiate salaries because I'm not in that space, but I think it's really, really important, to understand. And let's scrape it right back, right? Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving? Why are you looking for a job? Why are you looking to work for that organisation? This then backs up your research, like Amita said, not just from the compensation package, but actually what's that value and that value to you from that organisation? What are you getting as part of your package? Or actually more so, what do you need as part of that package? With regards to mums, do you need flexible working? Have that conversation with flexible working. If flexible working is rigid, when they come back to you, you've been told it's going to be flexible working, but then actually when the job offer comes in, it's not going to work for you. And I think Amita's right. I've done this previously in previous job roles for myself outside, not in tech. Know your worth. What do you represent for that organization? What are you going to bring to that organization? When you're talking to recruiters, as in recruitment agencies as well, I think, Mita, you're absolutely right. Lean on those recruiters to help you, but be very, very clear from the onset what your salary range is. And don't move those goals and don't move the goalposts, because the other thing is as well, I think there's a suspicion that gets flagged up as well. If you're, say, on this salary and you go and take this job offer, but it's 5K more, 5K less, why would you take it? Do you take it actually because the benefits of what you get back in terms of your personal life and that work-life balance actually is better? That's a different scenario. But if you just take it because you want out and you want that job, that's when you kind of need to have a check on yourself and work out whether you need to walk. But yeah, I think Amita's right. And Amita, that's such you know, like what you were saying about males tend to negotiate more than females. Girls, come on. You just need to know what you stand for in this environment and really stand by your guns on it as well.
No, it's okay to ask questions, as you said, Amita, because the guys are probably asking the questions anyway, as part of their process. We are running out of time. I wanted to ask you quickly before we went to the Q&A. There are so many questions coming in. I wanted to ask you, what happens post-interview? Is there anything you can do to follow up? Is it really needed to follow up? Should you not? Any advice?
Definitely follow up. You need feedback.
Yeah.
The worst thing that I'm hearing at the moment are either so many getting ghosted or they don't get feedback. Why? Get the feedback. Is it because the employer hasn't fed back? If it's a recruiter, a recruitment agency working for them, get that feedback, because that feedback helps you if you haven't landed that job role to actually be better the next time round or develop further in those skills. You know, and I think the other thing as well, which I always make sure I do, if I've been for an interview that somebody's put me forward for, I will always ring after the interview and give my instant reaction, because I think that's real, and that's really useful for that recruiter as well. How did it go? Just ringing you to tell you how it's gone. So yeah, I would say that definitely.
Yeah, I think as well.
That's great. Amita, do you find it strange if anyone were to ring you afterwards, or do you think actually they really want that job?
I mean, back when I was in agency recruitment, it was quite common, and actually I encourage candidates to do that, because as Kat said, it helps you get an idea straight away of how it went. I think now that I'm in internal recruitment, I think following up with thank you notes, thanking the interviewer for the time, just reiterating your enthusiasm if you're still interested in the role, and also maybe just picking out something from the interview that you particularly liked. If there was some outstanding questions from the interview, follow up with your thoughts or answers to them. And then, yeah, ask for feedback. I think that's a really good sign, because good candidates will want feedback, so they can improve for the next stage. And you know, it shows that they're receptive to feedback as well.
Yes, definitely. Ladies, I can see so many questions coming in. There are so many from career transitioners who are asking your advice. There are a few people in here asking about formatting, because obviously if you don't have the employment history, do you think that people should put, you know, their training, certifications, projects, etc., should they put them in front of employment history if they don't have them? I mean, traditionally you would think, I'll just list my employment history. Do you have any advice, Kat? I know you work with a lot of career transitioners. What do you tell them on what makes a good CV format?
Yeah, it depends where you want to format it, and please don't put it down as work experience.
Yeah.
Unless it's a project. So there's a thing here. If you've developed if you've done a project within that learning and development, and that's been an outcome, or you've put a product together or something, you could list that, but don't list that learning and development as work experience, because it's not, and it's quite misleading. What you could do is kind of have one third, and then on the right hand side put down your relevant, if you wanted it to kind of be read on the similar level. It's just about thinking about that format. And to be honest, if your work experience is, you know, your personal statement, think about what you put in there, your adaptable skill into that tech. This is why you want to do it. You can note in there that you've undertaken a program of learning. I would say work experience, and then your learning and development underneath, because if you've caught that recruiter's eye, they will continue to read down anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's just catching their eye at the top, to be able to read down. And somebody has said that in here actually about the length of a CV as well. You mentioned earlier not to put in a CV that is really, really long CV. Do you have any advice on what makes a perfect CV length? Someone has said here 2 pages, perhaps, with other information you could include. And they've said, I'm confused about this, which I think a lot of us are. Is 2 pages kind of about right?
I'd say 1 to 2 pages, yeah. For more junior candidates, you're probably looking at a page, but as you obviously get more experience, yeah, 1 to 2 pages I think is about right.
Yeah. Cat, anything way too much?
No, 1 to 2 pages definitely. You know, and when you're getting onto 1 to 2 pages, like Amita was saying at the beginning, you're not listing every single duty you undertook in that job role, because that will be given away in the title a little bit. You're listing the stuff that's important and relevant to this job that you're applying for, and then expanding on it, which gives you that space.
Yes, definitely. I think sometimes we can go a bit wild, especially if you've been in work a few years and you think, I'm just going to keep going and going, and your CV can just turn into something that nobody is going to read. I can see lots of questions in here, Amita. They're all asking about how to get a job at Google Deepmind. So I will follow up with you about some of these. I don't expect you to know these off the top of your head. Is there anywhere that people can go to check out jobs at Google Deepmind? Obviously, you can go and check SheCanCode's job board as well for roles over there. Is there anywhere you would like to point people towards, Amita?
Beyond the SheCanCode profile that we've got, you could probably check out the website. Alternatively, welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you've got specific questions, I can maybe see if I can kind of find the answers for you and get back to you on LinkedIn.
Perfect, because I can see so many questions coming in here. Lots and lots of people are wondering about technical interviews at Google Deepmind, and how to find out more information about how to work there.
I'm just wondering if you wanted to share those questions between us and we can give the response, and then you could post the response back to the community.
Yes, that would be perfect. Yes, to follow up, which leads us on to tomorrow. We will post this recording, so if you would like to rewatch it, you can watch that on SheCanCode.io, and we will include some of the answers to those questions, because we had so many questions coming. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking part in our live Q&A. It's nice when our community are really, really active. But for now, ladies, we're already out of time. So Amita and Kat, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's been great.
Good, thank you to everybody listening. As always, thank you for joining us. It was our last webinar of the year, and we will be back in February with a new webinar series, so we hope to see you there. As mentioned, please go over to SheCanCode.io and check out our company profiles. Google Deepmind is on there. And lots of other wonderful corporate ambassadors as well. They're all looking to diversify their workforces. So please do take a look at that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we hope to see you again next time. Thank you. Bye.
See ya.